Incredible honor revealed. For Star General Stop's funeral for 80-year-old man, a surprising tribute. The sun was setting softly behind the old church as Frank Harper's family gathered to say goodbye, their faces a mix of sorrow and disbelief. Frank, a humble man who had spent his life under the hoods of cars, had been their cornerstone, navigating through years of economic struggles while never asking for recognition. Yet his funeral was sparsely attended, and for the first time, it struck them that perhaps he had never truly been seen. In the shadows of regret, doubts gnawed at them. Was there any value in a life spent selflessly? As the family sat in the small chapel, the air thickened with tension. Frank had always been the strong one, the dependable mechanic who fixed not just cars but lives. Now, without him, they faced their own struggles, the weight of expectations pressing down like an unrelenting force. Could they find their own paths, live up to the strength he had embodied? While they mourned, a nagging fear gripped them. What would become of his legacy now that he was gone? Before they could engage fully with their grief, an unexpected shiver cascaded through the room. Suddenly, the chapel doors swung open, and a polished figure stood silhouetted against the light. A four-star general, resonating authority with every step he took. Stark silence engulfed the gathering, eyes wide with curiosity. Who was this man, and why had he chosen to enter their somber ceremony? The general stood tall, metals glinting in the artificial illumination, as he approached the family. The murmurs of confusion transformed into an ominous buzz of anticipation. As he began to speak, the room shifted, stories flowing like a river, pulling the family and friends into a world beyond their grief. The general shared memories that straddled time, revealing how Frank had shaped him without ever knowing. His hands trembled as he recounted nights spent alongside Frank, learning not just about engines but about integrity and the worth of each person. In that moment, the family's heavy hearts began to stir. Perhaps they had underestimated their father's impact. Yet, as hope flickered like a candle's flame, anxiety swelled again. They feared the weight of expectation, the looming shadow of Frank's legacy. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each story shared, the tension in the room only escalated. The general's tales of mentorship, motivation, and quiet heroism struck chords deep within them. But as the final tale concluded, an even greater revelation loomed: the announcement of a scholarship in Frank's name. Gasps echoed softly. This wasn't merely recognition, this was pressure, a clarion call to step into shoes that seemed impossibly large. Would they rise to honor their father, or would they falter, watching his legacy dissipate like smoke? As their gazes collided, the uncertainty thickened the air. This pivotal moment pressed furiously against their minds. What would they do about Frank's uncelebrated heroism? Could they carry the weight of an honor they never anticipated? Would they seize the chance to transform his quiet strength into something that resonated beyond their small town? The questions hung heavy, unanswered, as they all stood on the brink, waiting for a decision that felt tantalizingly out of reach. The silence that followed the general's announcement crackled with unspoken expectations. Frank's children exchanged nervous glances, each grappling with the weight of the scholarship that now hung between them like a shimmering cloud of obligation and opportunity. The legacy of their father, once a mere backdrop to their lives, now loomed as a formidable challenge that demanded to be confronted. Sarah, the youngest, felt her pulse quicken. Questions erupted within her. She had always admired her father's resilience, but could she match it? She had spent years finding her footing in a world defined by expectations, yet uncertainty about her ambitions crippled her. What did it mean to inherit the mantle of integrity that the general had so eloquently described? She pondered, recalling how often she had shifted her path based on what others would think. Was this her chance to break free from that cycle? James, the eldest, wrestled with a storm brewing inside him. The image of his father, tirelessly working away at the garage, often flashed through his mind, a man of few words but abundant determination. James had pursued a corporate career, trading in his small-town dreams for the glitter of city life. Yet, the scholarship now put him squarely at a crossroads, pushing him to reconsider the person he had become. Would he be able to commit to a cause that resonated with dignity, rather than mere success? Could he cultivate a purpose worth trying to fulfill? In the midst of swirling thoughts, the General's presence suddenly felt akin to an anchor. The stories shared echoed in their minds, imprinted with lessons about humility and sacrifice. Here stood a man who had found growth through mentorship rooted in respect and authenticity. The weight of collective legacy pressed against their choices. Would they let the General's stories guide them toward understanding their paths? A burning determination began to emerge in Sarah's chest. What if she initiated a scholarship program to help other underprivileged kids, just like Frank had once helped the General? It would not only honor her father but allow her to build a bridge to others. She envisioned herself stepping outside her comfort zone, rallying fellow graduates to join her. James, on the other hand, found himself reflecting on the meaning of success. Corporate life dazzled him, yet it always felt void of greater purpose. Visions of Frank at the garage filled him with nostalgia. What if he ventured back home, transformed the garage into a community hub, a training space for aspiring mechanics? Elements of a plan flashed in his mind, igniting the embers of exciting yet terrifying possibilities, but with intention came fear. What if they failed? Each would have to confront not just the potential rejection of their aspirations but the specter of failing Frank's legacy. The weight sat heavily on their shoulders as they mulled over ideas in the flickering candlelight. As the eulogies dwindled, families began to seep out of the chapel, their conversations buzzing with shared memories. But within Sarah and James, a distinct resolve began to form. They couldn't let the moment slip away, nor could they hide from the shadows of high expectations. Each had to claim their brotherhood within their father's legacy in their unique ways. The decision lay before them, a catalyst threatening to disrupt their lives irreversibly. With every second that ticked by, the gravity of the choice loomed larger. Would they embrace their father's ethos and use it as a launch point into their futures? As the final goodbyes echoed among the dimming walls of the chapel, James turned to Sarah, voice steady yet raw. The time had come to face it, hadn't it? We can't ignore this opportunity. We need to find a way, together. An unexpected thrill coursed through them both. The crucial first step lingered in the air like a promise, ripe for the taking. It was now or never. Faced with this burgeoning resolve, they realized that the weight of their decisions could just lead to a freedom they had never imagined possible. But as they left the chapel, the unknown still shadowed their newfound aspirations. Would their commitment to the legacy reaffirm their path or hinder them further? The remnants of the day hung in the air as Sarah and James stepped outside, the weight of the chapel's interior clinging to them like the fading echoes of their father's influence. They stood under the vastness of an expansive sky, the horizon painted with streaks of deep oranges and purples. In that moment, they felt both liberated and entrapped by the magnitude of their choices. Sarah's mind raced, grappling with the surge of adrenaline mixed with uncertainty. How did one take steps to honor their father's legacy? The initial warmth of inspiration was dulled by doubt. Starting a scholarship program sounds good in theory, she murmured, her voice trailing off into the dusk. But how do you actually make it happen? James, standing resolute beside her, observed the way shadows played on her face, revealing the conflict lurking beneath her surface. Let us make a plan, he suggested. We can break it down into steps. I mean, how many times have we talked about wanting to do something meaningful? That's easy to say, but what if we screw it up? What if it falls flat? Sarah's voice quivered, a whisper of vulnerability breaking through her uncertainty. What if we're not enough? Frank's honesty was a ghost in the air, whispering truths they both strived to embrace. Had he feared failure while building his own legacy, always aching to offer something meaningful despite the risks? Sarah's thoughts spiraled into a blend of self-doubt and an unshakable desire to prove herself. Gripped with a sudden clarity, she looked at her brother. If I'm to do this, I need to start right now. I can't keep waiting for the right moment. I'll reach out to school counselors, see what resources we can gather, she said, determination seeping into her words, anchoring her to purpose, and in that instant, James felt a shift. His ego had danced around corporate accolades, silencing that yearning voice deep within, urging him to contribute something more substantial. The memory of their father working overtime on broken engines sparked a fresh resolve. Wasn't that what truly mattered? Reviving Frank's spirit through a community hub could manifest that desire for purpose. I'm with you, Sarah, he affirmed. Let's map it all out from outreach to funding. I could kickstart it by repurposing the garage. He pictured it transforming from a neglected space into a vibrant training ground, restoring lives much like their father had restored old cars. The thought ignited a fire inside, pushing the fear of failure aside, if only just for a moment, but doubt lingered like a storm cloud on the horizon. As they traced out their plans under the evening sky, Sarah couldn't shake the nagging fear. What if they didn't have the skills, the connections, or the perseverance that their father had possessed? She hesitated, but what if the ideas crumble before they take flight? We'd be left with nothing but disappointment. James's gaze sharpened, piercing her self-doubt. Maybe that risk is worth taking. If we land flat on our faces, at least we tried. Isn't that what Dad taught us? Through clenched teeth and welling frustration, Sarah realized she wasn't just battling her aspirations, she was wrestling with the narrative they had written for themselves under their father's shadow. This was her chance to redefine that story, one not bound by doubts but inked with courage and intention. As they parted ways, resolute plans in mind, Sarah felt a surge of anxiety interlaced with a thrill she hadn't encountered before. She had the opportunity to shape not only her own life but also the lives of others, stirring away from the temptation to retreat into familiar hesitance. Barely centered on her thoughts, she paused. The challenges ahead were daunting, yet beneath them lay endless possibilities. As the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating their paths in soft hues, a realization settled over Sarah. Perhaps, in honoring her father, the most profound legacy she could leave was to prove that failure was not the end, but rather, part of personal growth. Yet, the haunting questions remained. Would they succeed in their endeavors, or fade into obscurity like fleeting dreams? A clap of thunder echoed in the distance, an ominous reminder of the storms that could still be brewing on the horizon. Would they muster the audacity to face whatever might come their way? The next morning was an exercise in focus. Sarah sat at her modest kitchen table, a laptop open before her like an eager audience. Her surroundings were familiar yet suffocating in their normalcy, not the stimulating setting she had envisioned for moments of inspiration. The sun flooded through the window, illuminating scattered reminders of her past decisions. She paused, hands poised above the keyboard. The names of her father's favorite schools danced through her thoughts, but unsettling doubts blocked her resolve. What if her initiative was little more than fleeting ambition? Could a scholarship truly make a difference, or was it merely a whispered wish wrapped in idealistic drapery? The stark uncertainty yanked at her nerves. Start simple, she muttered to herself. Reflecting back on James's words, she envisioned the first actionable steps. Sarah tapped her fingers against the table, imagining that each subtle rhythm was driving away her fears. First, a detailed list. She needed clarity, a roadmap of her intentions set in firm ink. She clicked through the steps, formulating a plan, research nearby schools, outline program details, and identify potential donors. Pushing away thoughts that warned of possible mistakes, Sarah made a conscious decision to move forward, word by word, step by step. Each meticulous entry became cemented in her commitment. Gradually, momentum built. The fear-induced fog that had clouded her judgment began to thin. She started drafting an email to school counselors, articulating her vision. Breathless waves of anxiety would spike with every keystroke, yet there was also exhilaration in the possibility of connections forming through shared purpose. The world beyond her table started to glimmer with potential. After a few defiant hours circling thoughts and words, she highlighted the final draft. There was something cathartic in the act. The challenge presented a side of her she had long kept hidden, a yearning to manifest change. Swallowing her reluctance, she hit send. With that action, her emboldenment quickly gave way to second-guessing. Had she oversold her vision? Sunk too deep into a fantasy spun from vague ambition? She paced her small kitchen, drawn into an internal dialogue that rattled against her convictions. A series of earnest reflections on their father painted a comforting backdrop. He had spoken of the importance of taking risks, recognizing that sting of failure was part of being human. But it wasn't the lesson that comforted Sarah now, it was the thought that coaxed out a deeper truth. Perhaps the legacy of their father did not live solely through achievements, but also through the courage to attempt, to engage the unknown. Mid-psychological shuffle, she resolved to navigate beyond the anxieties clouding her mind. Different voices nudged her toward reality rescue organizations, community leaders, and, most importantly, their father's old friends. It wasn't just about funding, it was about creating a tapestry of shared commitment, a living breathing reminder of what he stood for. Those connections mattered. What if they could transform the garage into a space remaining true to his legacy? Enthusiasm wrestled with fear inside her. She picked up the phone, fingers trembling slightly against the cool metal, and decided to make her first call, a local community representative she had known from childhood. "Hello, Mr. Sandoval?" She began, voice steady despite the rapid heartbeat hammering in her chest. There was a newfound tenacity behind her words, a depth evolving from frayed uncertainty. As she spoke, magic intersected with reality, a shift in dynamics, the lines outlining her story adapting as the phone conversation unfolded. Here she was, standing on the precipice of intention, concluding the call. Exhilaration surged through Sarah. Plans began to solidify, her vision transforming from abstract notions into tangible realities, thoughts molded by an unyielding desire to honor her father's legacy profoundly. Just as she settled her mind, questioning how far her outreach could go, a message pinged from her email, an immediate reply. The acknowledgement was quick and positive. A meeting proposed, a step closer. But along with the thrill of connection came a sobering realization: the path forward was littered with as many unknowns as it was filled with promise. Eyes darting between the email and her dwindling list of tasks, Sarah sensed the weight of escalation. Each new opportunity came with reciprocal responsibility. Could she handle the mounting expectations? What if this momentum was just a prelude to greater challenges ahead? Winter had morphed into spring, but the storms of her internal battles were only just beginning to gather. As clouds accumulated on the horizon of her journey, she braced herself for what she would soon confront. Each wave of motivation, buoyed by the hope of transformation, whispered a question. How firm was her resolve to navigate the rising tides? The moment to unearth her true potential drew near. Would she be willing to dive into the depths and face what awaited? Sarah sat at her kitchen table, still buzzing from the phone call with Mr. Sandoval. It had been a small step, yet it felt monumental, like standing at the base of a great mountain. Her laptop screen flickered with the glowing email notification, a promise of potential just waiting for her response. The open calendar on her wall stared back at her, dotted with dates marked for calls and follow-ups, each one a commitment she made to herself to follow through. The urgency to act pulled at her, and yet a creeping anxiety began to surface. How many times had she hesitated before embarking on a challenge? It wasn't just the fear of failure, it was the weight of expectations. What if she couldn't live up to the vision she had woven into her plans? She shifted in her seat, absorbing the rays of sunlight that infiltrated her kitchen, igniting the small space with warmth. The luminous energy felt strangely supportive, nudging her toward embracing the uncertainty ahead. With a deep breath, she tried to block out the doubts trying to gnaw at her resolve. Instead, she refocused and replied to Mr. Sandoval's message, confirming the meeting and reinforcing her intention to explore collaboration further. Choosing to harness the wave of motivation, Sarah opened an entirely new document. This time, it wasn't about the momentary tasks laid out previously. This was a vision board of sorts, a compilation of what the garage project could achieve. She wrote about community gatherings, educational workshops, and perhaps mentorship programs that could honor their father's legacy and build bridges from the past to a hopeful future. As the words flowed, realization dawned on her: this wasn't just a project. It was an extension of herself, an opportunity to express what it meant to find strength amid vulnerability. Coupled with that insight were shimmers of her father's old story, celebrations of small successes, a reminder that greatness often rooted itself in seemingly simple beginnings. Fueled by the desire to create a tangible impact, Sarah sought out resources. She scoured local websites and social media, pen in hand, jotting down any contact or program that might ignite her mission. As she delved deeper into her research, a new sense of urgency settled. She lost track of time, consumed by the spark of potential that her father had always believed in. Then, another ping interrupted her thoughts, a reply from another organization she had reached out to days prior. They expressed enthusiasm for her vision and were open to supporting the initiative. Excitement surged, but with it came a dull ache of trepidation. Would her idea resonate with others when pitched in person? The clock on the wall ticked noisily, each sound echoing Sarah's uncertainty, but she stood up and walked away from the table, pacing thoughtfully. She could hear her father's voice in the back of her mind, reminding her of the countless obstacles he had faced, coupled with the relentless determination that had fueled him. "Trust the journey, Sarah," she whispered aloud, grounding herself in the moment. The words felt empowering. She needed to trust her instincts, even if it meant embracing discomfort. That evening, exhausted yet exhilarated, Sarah settled down with a cup of tea. As she sipped, she felt a shift within her, a departure from hesitation toward resolve. But lurking beneath the surface was the fear of the obstacles to come. What if she encountered strong oppositions during her meetings? The thought pressed against her, reminding her that the path she had chosen was neither simple nor certain. Yet, she had a decision to make, to either forge ahead or retreat into familiar safety. As she put down the cup, a new email notification flashed on her screen: invitation details for the meeting with Mr. Sandoval. Her heart raced as the implications of the invitation settled in. They were no longer abstract ideas but commitments to be honored. The time had come to face the realities of her ambitions. Tomorrow's meeting could either solidify her path or challenge her resolve in ways she couldn't yet understand. Determined to embody the very legacy she sought to uphold, she took a deep breath, gathering her strength for what lay ahead. Would she rise to the occasion, or would this be a moment of reckoning that tested the core of her motivations? The answer awaited her, hidden just past the veil of dawn. The morning dawned with a purpling sky, the sun inching its way upward, casting golden light into Sarah's room. Despite her restless night spent turning over her thoughts about the meeting, she was determined to make the most of this new day. Breakfast felt like a ritual of preparation, each sip of coffee, each slice of toast an act of defiance against the apprehension that threatened to overwhelm her. Today was a pivotal moment. Tension bloomed within her as she dressed. She chose a navy blazer, wishing to convey professionalism, yet carrying the weight of her father's memory in every thread. It felt important to honor his sacrifices not just in words but in presence, to embody the resilience he had taught her. Her hands trembled slightly as she checked her reflection in the mirror. Would she project strength or uncertainty? She rehearsed her pitch under her breath, scanning her notes, the organized chaos blending ideas and aspirations into a coherent narrative. But with every sentence practiced, doubts crept in like shadows. What if her vision wasn't enough? She shook her head, exhaling, and took a moment to ground herself. This was paramount. She reminded herself that the stakes stretched beyond her unease. It was about more than just an opportunity, it represented the legacy she sought to build. The drive was punctuated with a cacophony of internal dialogue. Her mind raced through every possibility, confronting concerns of how Mr. Sandoval might react, whether her ideas would spark excitement or skepticism among the others. Each thought competed for dominance, but rather than folding under pressure, she leaned into the tension, arriving at the office building where the meeting took place, Sarah parked and took a moment to acclimate, breathing deeply and reciting her father's mantra, "Strength lies in vulnerability." With those words, she clutched her portfolio, a tactile reminder of the work she had done. Could she lean into this uncertainty and showcase her authentic self? Entering the conference room felt ceremonial, the space buzzed with subdued energy. She took her seat among a group of experienced professionals, each one buzzing with expertise, a discordant backdrop to her nerves. As the meeting commenced, Mr. Sandoval spoke warmly, detailing the organization's goals, but Sarah felt her heart race as the moment approached when she would have to speak. When her turn arrived, she steadied her breath, presenting her vision not just as a project pitch but as the embodiment of her father's legacy. The room slowed as she detailed the potential benefits for the community, drawing on her father's stories of resilience, which served as both inspiration and foundation. But as she spoke, an unexpected challenge arose. One attendee raised concerns about the project's viability, questioning if the resources were truly feasible. The hesitation in the room tightened around her like a vice, sparking an internal battle. What if they wouldn't believe in her vision? What if she couldn't defend it? Instinctively, she found solace in the realization that doubt often coexists with ambition. This was not just about defending ideas, it was a test of her resolve and authenticity. "Let us consider," Sarah responded, maintaining her poise, "that every great initiative faces skepticism in its infancy. The courage to transform doubt into action lies in understanding our potential and that of our community." A faint sense of empowerment washed over her as she articulated her thoughts, weaving her father's narratives into her responses. Could this moment of confrontation illuminate her hidden strengths? As the meeting wore on, she absorbed the reaction of her audience, some nodding thoughtfully, others still skeptical. The confrontation had unsettled her, yet ignited a fire. Would she let this moment define her, or would she rise, learning from setbacks to galvanize her resolve? Leaving the conference room, her heart swelled, feeling slightly tethered yet emboldened. The path divergence loomed. She had either reinforced her commitment to this journey or found a swift lesson in facing opposition. Striding through the office corridor, Sarah realized she had uncovered a new layer of her potential, a realization that the fear was not an isolating force but a catalyst for growth. Beyond the meeting's outcome lay the true reflection of her journey, embracing the uncertainty that had once stifled her spirit. As she exited the building, her phone buzzed, a new email notification flashing the potential for more challenges ahead. Would they yield growth, or would she stumble? The invitation to a pivotal conversation lingered, hidden like a glimmer of insight, urging her forward into the depths of the unknown. As Sarah stepped through the glass doors, the afternoon sun flooding her with brightness felt both inviting and blinding. She paused, allowing the weight of her earlier confrontation to settle like a mantle around her shoulders. Navigating a sea of mixed emotions, she navigated to her phone. Was this the moment that would either push her forward or define her retreat? The email awaited her, subject line bold, "Follow-up from today's meeting." Her pulse quickened as she pressed the screen. Mr. Sandoval acknowledged her presentation, stating it had sparked more dialogue than he had anticipated. However, he also noted the concerns raised. The necessity to refine her projections had been stated bluntly. "Please meet tomorrow to discuss revisions." The anxiety that had once consumed her morphed into a new form: determination. This wasn't merely a chance to prove herself, it was an opportunity to transform scrutiny into resilience. The thought invigorated her, igniting a flicker of excitement within her chest. However, even within the burgeoning confidence, shadows of self-doubt still hovered. What if she couldn't meet the expectations? She could feel the weight of the moment pressing. The prospect of redefining her project swirled in her thoughts like a shifting tide, and whether she would sink or float remained unclear. On the drive home, she turned over what she might alter in her presentation. Faced with a blank canvas of figures and proposals, she wrestled with the need to be both realistic and aspirational. Her father's voice echoed within her. Projects flourished through further refinement. Resilience lay not in perfection but in the willingness to adapt. Arriving home, Sarah settled into her home office, collecting her notes in a chaotic pile. She decided to take action rather than succumb to paralyzing fear. She immersed herself in research, combing through case studies, searching for evidence that would fortify her claims. Hours swept past in a haze, each statistic a stepping stone toward a more secure foundation for her ideas. The deeper she delved, the more connections she made. Past successes illuminated the way forward. Sarah found herself energized, the essence of her father's spirit alive within her, guiding her through the labyrinth of facts and figures. Yet, amidst that inspired frenzy, doubts hung like a fog, threatening to creep back in. Would tomorrow's meeting be yet another opportunity for failure? As night enveloped her surroundings, she took a moment to breathe, surveying the scattered notes now crowded with ideas. In that minutiae, she began to see a pattern that told a story, not only about her project but also about herself, a journey from uncertainty to newfound resilience. It was a reflection of her growth, her ability to confront skepticism not with fear but with an open heart and mind. The weight of her father's legacy bore down as she considered what was at stake, invigorating her resolve. It was about more than just a proposal, it was a declaration of who she was and the values she chose to uphold. She was ready to embrace the next challenge. As she prepared for bed, the final thought crystallized in her mind. Would this next meeting be mere revision or another battle of sorts, challenging her to push further beyond her limits? The tension, while palpable, felt different now, like a bowstring pulled taut, ready to release. With sleep beckoning, she closed her eyes, a whirlwind of potential waiting to be unleashed. Tomorrow, she would launch herself into the fray, perhaps to discover yet another layer of her strength. Would the battle of ideas ultimately liberate her vision, or would it reveal more profound truths that she had yet to confront? As the first rays of dawn stretched across the sky, Sarah awoke with an urgency that felt almost electric. The weight of the impending meeting settled heavily on her shoulders, but her determination had transformed it into a badge of honor rather than a shackle. She was no longer merely a candidate testifying to her ideas, she was the architect of her own narrative, ready to defend her vision with every ounce of tenacity she possessed. In the stillness of her home office, she set the stage, preparing her materials with a meticulousness reflective of her renewed resolve. Each chart, graph, and bullet point became an extension of her thoughts, a testament to the work she had invested. The room seemed charged with potential as she laid everything out, visualizing not only the presentation but how she would articulate the story, a narrative alive with passion, evidence, and authentic belief. Sarah took a moment to center herself, breathing deeply as she recalled the conversations she had with her father. His unwavering belief in the power of words and clarity echoed in her mind. The truth, well presented, can move mountains, he would say. Today, she would harness that truth, ready to illuminate her projections with conviction. As the meeting approached, her thoughts crowded with the words her colleagues had used, concerns about feasibility, skepticism about ambition. Instead of letting that anxiety fester, Sarah used those doubts as fuel. What if they didn't see the value? This time, failure would not close doors but rather open new ones, revealing pathways for growth and understanding. On the way to the office, she rehearsed her points in the hush of her car. Each recitation fortified her presence, sharpening her understanding of the material until it felt second nature. She could visualize her colleagues, the subtle nods of approval, the moment their skepticism would shift into intrigue. With that vision, her energy surged. Entering the conference room, she noted the presence of Mr. Sandoval, his demeanor both intimidating and inviting. It was a space laden with expectation, their scrutinizing eyes felt like both a challenge and a validation. As the discussion commenced, the air shifted palpably. This was not merely a presentation, it was her moment to claim authority, her narrative woven into the discourse. Every statistic she cited was backed by evidence. Her projections were crisp and clear, resonating with not just logic but with the passion that inspired them. She confronted questions head-on, allowing their probing to catalyze deeper insights rather than derail her. Each time she pushed back against their hesitance, she could feel a ripple of trust gradually building. Momentum surged when one of her colleagues, Claire, typically ambivalent, leaned forward. "But how can we be sure these projections will hold true?" she challenged, folding her arms with an expression that hinted at skepticism but also curiosity. Instead of faltering, Sarah summoned all that she had prepared. What I can assure you is that we approach this with flexibility. This isn't just a chart, it's a living document. Adjustments will be made seamlessly as we proceed. My vision is dynamic, much like the market we navigate. Together, we'll refine and adapt. In that moment, she noticed nods of understanding, a shift in the room's energy. Perhaps the battle was not against their doubts but a shared pursuit of clarity and ambition. As she concluded her presentation, applause filled the room not just for her ideas but for a new foundation she had begun building within her team. Walking out of that conference room, however, Sarah felt the sweetness of triumph punctuated by an unsettling curiosity. Had she truly managed to shift the perspective of her colleagues, or was this merely a temporary victory? What lay ahead would not only test her project but the essence of her professional identity itself. Tomorrow, the real confrontation awaited. She had ignited a flame, but would she be able to keep it alight against the winds of challenge? With the adrenaline of her successful presentation still coursing through her veins, Sarah awoke the following morning with a blend of excitement and trepidation. The previous day's victory had set a new standard, and she was acutely aware of the treacherous waters she was about to navigate. Confidence, she realized, was no longer a comfortable cloak but rather a fragile, demanding mantle that required her to prove herself anew each day. As she prepared for another day at the office, her mind raced with strategies. It was no longer enough to hope that their trust in her would solidify. She needed to craft a plan to sustain that energy, to transform the initial support into a robust collaboration. The path ahead could lead to further advancements or plunge her deeper into uncertainty. At the office, the atmosphere buzzed with speculation. Colleagues chattered about the presentation, but Sarah felt an undercurrent of doubt persist. She overheard snippets of conversations. Will it really work? Can we count on her? The once supportive applause now seemed like a distant echo taunting her resolve, a flickering flame lacking fuel. Determined not to succumb to insecurity, Sarah sought out Claire, her most vocal skeptic from the meeting. Can we talk? She asked, her voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. Claire's brow furrowed in curiosity, perhaps intrigue. They found a quieter corner of the office, where the din of doubt dissipated. Look, I appreciate the enthusiasm you brought yesterday, Claire began, her tone more conciliatory than confrontational. But you know skepticism comes with the territory. We need more than passion, we need a concrete roadmap. Sarah's heart sank briefly at the reminder of the wall she still had to climb, yet Claire's honesty sparked a flicker of recognition. You're right, she breathed, the realization dawned like light after a storm. I didn't provide enough tangible measures. It's more than just vision, it's about how we execute it. In that moment, her mind snapped into high gear. What if I organized a follow-up meeting? We could create subgroups to dissect different aspects of the project. I want to present an adaptable plan with clear milestones, something we can build together. Claire's expression softened. That might just do it. Bring them in, make it transparent. Show that you value their input. Change is easier when everyone feels part of it. Sarah left their conversation invigorated. She immediately began drafting an agenda for the meeting, outlining roles, responsibilities, and timelines. This was not about her unilateral vision anymore, it was about weaving everyone's strengths into a coherent tapestry. She needed to embrace collective ownership, allowing others to see their reflections in her ambitions. As the day unfolded, Sarah met with several colleagues, surprising herself with how skillfully she integrated their feedback into her evolving plan. She instinctively sensed strengths in their responses, the collective commitment burgeoning around the project. Yet as she shared the plan with the team during the follow-up meeting, an unsettling fear gripped her. What if her efforts to build trust faltered? What if the walls she tried so hard to tear down only grew higher? The thought seemed to lurk in the corners of her mind, waiting to pounce. Clarity and hope mingled with doubt as she watched the expressions of her colleagues. Would this stimulate collaboration, or would her intentions seem naive? The stakes felt higher, the challenges more pronounced. Each moment passed with an intensity that set her nerves on edge, yet she stood firm, ready to confront whatever might unfold. Just as conversations revived the pulse of the room and momentum built around her ideas, a voice from the back sliced through the air, cutting through the warmth of optimism. "Sarah, but isn't this all a bit ambitious? What happens if we can't deliver?" Sarah froze, her heart pounding. The doubt that once buoyed her resolve now curled around her mind like a serpent constricting its prey. How would she respond? The moment was undeniably hers to seize, yet the path to authenticity lay diversely layered between ambition and apprehension. The time had come to face the underlying fears that had always lingered in the periphery, threatening to derail her efforts. Would she address the challenge with transparency, or would she stumble back into the shadows of her earlier insecurities? The room awaited her next move, and Sarah knew that her response could reshape the team dynamics forever. The weeks that followed were a testament to Sarah's commitment to her father's legacy and a profound personal transformation. Embracing the potent blend of vulnerability and ambition, she had not only refined her vision but also fostered a collaborative culture within her workplace. Building her project into a community hub became more than a professional goal, it morphed into her life's potential defining moment. Determined, she took every opportunity to engage with her team. The follow-up meetings became spaces of shared dedication, each person contributing their unique insights. Sarah's role shifted from project leader to facilitator. She cultivated an environment where everyone felt empowered to venture into the unknown and tackle the doubts head-on. The skepticism that once clouded the conversations gradually transformed into proactive dialogue. Each discussion sewed together a tighter, shared vision, with the legacy of their project incarnated in each member's contributions. One Friday afternoon, Sarah received an unexpected email from Mr. Sandoval, a formal invitation to present her community hub proposal at a regional meeting. This was a pivotal recognition, one that signaled that her voice would reach beyond the confines of their office. Nervous exhilaration rippled through her as she sorted through the burgeoning excitement within. This was a real opportunity to manifest the change she envisioned, a definitive step toward bridging her father's influence with the community he loved. Preparation for the presentation consumed her thoughts, yet it felt lighter this time. Armed with the insights from her team and a clear message, she meticulously crafted her narrative. She structured the presentation to highlight not only her vision but also the collective journey they had undertaken. Every statistic and heartwarming anecdote would resonate deeply, echoing her father's spirit of nurturing lives through skill and compassion. On presentation day, she stood outside the conference room, her heart racing. The room buzzed with energy, filled with key stakeholders eager to support initiatives benefiting the community. As she stepped inside, confronted by expectant faces, a newfound confidence surged within her. No longer the uncertain daughter grappling with self-doubt, she had evolved into a figure of assuredness. As she spoke, voices of concern from the past drifted into distant echoes. Each chapter of her narrative unveiled a story of resilience, illustrating the collaborative approach they nurtured to construct a community hub. Feedback transformed from skepticism into curiosity, igniting discussions that allowed her ideas to flourish. The applause that followed was not just for the proposal itself but a testament to the relationships she had built along the way. Amid the applause, Sarah felt the weight of her father's influence wash over her, a profound sense of connection between who she was and who he had been. His legacy had not just inspired her to act, it had molded her into a leader who understood the power of community and collaboration. Months down the line, the project gained traction, and the community hub steadily took shape. Sarah received an award for her leadership in bringing the initiative to fruition. It was a moment marked by the recognition of her hard work, but more importantly, it signified a celebration of values she continued to uphold: integrity, perseverance, and the spirit of service. Standing amidst fellow award recipients, she recognized the evolution of her journey. She had conquered her fears, stepped into the light, and built a new narrative anchored in her father's enduring legacy. With deep satisfaction, she acknowledged the profound fulfillment of crafting not only a successful initiative but rekindling a connection to her identity. As the evening concluded, Sarah exited the venue, enveloped by the cool breeze of realization. She had not only honored her father's legacy, she had proven to herself that her dreams of impact and change were both attainable and vital. Walking into the night, she was no longer defined by her father's shadow but lit by the torch of his teachings, guiding her onward. Now is the time to embrace the power of your own journey. You need to subscribe now to our channel to catch more inspiring stories like Sarah's. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the motivation. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative conclusion, and let us keep the conversation going. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let us celebrate the essence of overcoming and thriving.